I'm Ethan Reed, 32 years old, and my life used to have a predictable rhythm. For years, I poured my heart into teaching high school literature, guiding young adults through the complexities of Shakespeare and the power of narrative. It was my calling, a place where I felt truly alive and purposeful. But life has a way of throwing curveballs, and for me, it came in the form of a health issue that brought me back home to Maplewood, Ohio. Suddenly, my carefully constructed world shifted. My savings were dwindling and I needed a job, any job, and fast. That's how I found myself accepting a position I never expected, teaching 7th grade at the local middle school. It was a completely different beast, a new wilderness I had to navigate, but I was determined to make it work. I prided myself on my ability to connect with students, to foster a safe and engaging learning environment. I always believed in looking for the good, in forgiving, and in letting apathy wash away negativity. But this year, this very specific year, tested every fiber of that belief. The school itself felt off from day one. It was visibly understaffed, a skeleton crew trying to keep a bustling ship afloat. My department, the on-level and honors English teachers, was like two separate countries at war, or at least in a cold standoff. The honors teachers, headed by my assigned advisor, kept to themselves, and the on-level teachers, a tight-knit clique of long-timers, did the same. I was the new guy, fresh off the high school circuit, stuck in the awkward middle. Both groups expected me to follow their lesson plans, each with their own jargon and routines established over years, but neither truly included me in the planning process. I'd show up to weekly meetings, listen intently, ask questions, and then try to fuse their conflicting approaches into something coherent for my 7th graders. My students were bright, curious, and sometimes utterly chaotic. I wanted to give them the best, but it felt like I was constantly swimming against a strong current, trying to please everyone and fit into a system that didn't quite have a place for me. I felt like an outsider, an intruder in a world that already had its own rules and unspoken hierarchies. The true problem, the dark cloud that overshadowed everything, was the school's administration, or rather the lack of support they provided. It was a bizarre system. If a student was causing a major disturbance, we couldn't just send them to the office for immediate intervention. Oh no, that would be too simple. Instead, we had to fill out a paper form, then wait for administration to eventually schedule a meeting with the student. I remember one particular incident, vivid as if it were yesterday. A student, fueled by an unknown anger, picked up a textbook and hurled it across the room, barely missing another child. It was a clear, unambiguous act of aggression. I immediately sent the student out, believing it was the only safe course of action. But within minutes, the student was back in my classroom, still simmering with rage. Later, I was called into the principal's office and scolded for sending the student out. I was told I should have filed an online form and waited, despite the threats the student had made during the altercation. The grand punishment for this aggressive display? A lunch timeout. It was baffling, infuriating, and undermined any sense of authority I tried to establish. How could I maintain order, foster respect, when the very system I worked within refused to back me up? Things only spiraled from there. I had a strict policy in my classroom: leave your drama at the door, don't bring it in here. I believed in creating a safe space where students could learn without fear of bullying or petty squabbles. If I saw any form of insult or conflict, I shut it down immediately. This led to two students who couldn't seem to stop bickering and escalating their issues being transferred out of my class. When I spoke to the principal about it, hoping for some guidance or clarification, she shrugged it off. "It's fine, Mr. Reed," she said, her voice dismissive. "The parents are just upset because they don't like you correcting their students for misbehavior." I tried to believe her, tried to tell myself it was just a minor bump in the road, but it wasn't fine, not by a long shot. She went and told the other on-level teachers her version of events, painting me as the cause of their difficulties. They in turn resented me, blaming me for the increased behavioral struggles they now faced in their classes. I felt horrible, like I had inadvertently created a problem for my colleagues, even though I was just trying to do my job. The ostracization became a palpable weight in the staff room. At department meetings, my questions were met with stony silence. If I asked about a specific lesson plan, I would be completely ignored, as if I hadn't spoken at all. I started relying almost entirely on the honors teachers' lessons, adapting them as best I could, and my students, bless their hearts, truly grew and excelled. But the isolation, the feeling of being an unwanted anomaly, it was a heavy burden to carry. I just wanted to be a good teacher to help these kids, but it felt like the entire school environment was conspiring against me. I tried, truly I did, to navigate the choppy waters of that school year. I'd show up early, stay late, and devote every ounce of my energy to my students. I believed that if I just worked harder, if I just proved myself, things would eventually turn around. I tried to mend fences with the on-level teachers, offering to share resources, asking for advice, but my efforts were met with cold shoulders and blank stares. Their resentment felt like a physical barrier, pushing me further and further. It was exhausting, constantly feeling like I was walking on eggshells, trying to avoid further conflict while still upholding my principles. The administration's continued apathy was a constant drain on my spirit. More forms, more incidents, more dismissals of serious behavioral issues. It taught me a harsh lesson. In this environment, my passion for teaching and student well-being was a liability, not an asset. The situation steadily worsened. My once bright outlook began to dim under the relentless pressure. I saw other teachers giving up, just going through the motions, and I felt a chilling fear that I was heading down that same path. The joy I once found in the classroom was being slowly eroded by the constant battles with unsupportive colleagues and an indifferent administration. I started to question myself, my abilities, and even my chosen profession. Was I truly effective? Was I making a difference, or was I just a punching bag for a dysfunctional system? The thought of leaving, of simply walking away, crossed my mind more than once, but my deep-seated commitment to my students held me back. They were the reason I dragged myself out of bed each morning. Then came the moment that truly broke something inside me, a moment that crystallized all the slights and frustrations into a sharp, painful insult. A new student, a seventh-grade girl named Sarah, appeared on my roster. I hadn't heard anything about a transfer, so I, being the earnest and hopeful teacher I still was, went to the classroom of the on-level teacher she had come from. I approached her, trying to be friendly and professional. "Excuse me," I began. "I noticed Sarah is now on my roster. Is there anything I should know to help her out? What does she struggle in?" The teacher, a woman who had been particularly cold towards me, looked at me with a smirk that quickly turned into outright laughter. "She transferred to your class," she practically scoffed, the words dripping with mockery. I tried to continue, "Yes, so I was wondering," but she wasn't listening. She just started laughing harder, turning her back to me mid-sentence and practically skipping away. She waltzed right up to another coworker who was guiding traffic outside, her voice carrying clearly poetic justice. She crowed before walking off, still laughing, leaving me standing there, utterly bewildered and publicly humiliated. I felt a hot flush of shame creep up my neck. My chest tightened and my eyes welled up with an unexpected burn. I turned, my dignity shattered, and practically ran back to my classroom. Once the door was closed, the tears I had fought back finally came. I sat at my desk, my head in my hands, sobbing. It wasn't just about the student, it was about everything. The isolation, the blame, the lack of support, and now this outright cruel mockery. I called my mom, my voice thick with tears, pouring out all the pent-up frustration and sadness. I felt completely broken, lost, and utterly defeated. It was the lowest I had ever felt in my professional life. All my efforts, all my attempts to connect, to be a good colleague, to rise above the negativity had been met with scorn and ridicule. I was ready to give up, to throw in the towel, to accept that this year was an unmitigated disaster and that perhaps I wasn't cut out for this after all. It felt like all was truly lost. But then, through my tears, my mom's voice, calm and steady, offered a lifeline. "Ethan," she said, "make that student your project, prove them wrong." Her words cut through my despair, a small spark in the darkness, igniting a different kind of fire within me. My mom's words, "Make that student your project, prove them wrong," echoed in my mind. They were a challenge, a dare, and a lifeline all at once. In that moment of absolute despair, something shifted inside me. The tears stopped, replaced by a steely resolve. I was done with trying to win over hostile colleagues or appease a clueless administration. My focus would be singular, my students. Sarah, the girl whose transfer had become the catalyst for that humiliating exchange, would be my first mission. I would dedicate myself to her and to every other student in my classroom with a fervor I hadn't realized I possessed. This wasn't about seeking revenge in the petty sense, not yet anyway. It was about reclaiming my purpose, proving to myself that I was still a good teacher, even if no one else in that building believed it. I started immediately. The very next day, I called Sarah's mom. She sounded frazzled, worried, almost frantic. She expressed a deep frustration with Sarah's previous teacher, detailing a profound lack of support for her daughter's struggles with focus and energy. Sarah was a bright girl, the mother explained, but she needed a structured, encouraging environment to truly thrive. I listened intently, taking notes, understanding the uphill battle this young girl had been facing. I spent hours researching different strategies for students with attention challenges, devouring articles and talking to a few of the honors teachers who had always been more approachable. They offered practical advice, more positive reinforcement, incorporating movement breaks, assigning specific tasks to keep her engaged. These were all things I already tried to do, but I doubled down, making them central to my daily routine with Sarah. I also arranged for her to attend weekly tutoring sessions, focusing on foundational skills she might have missed in her previous class. Sarah blossomed under the focused attention. It wasn't overnight, but steadily her confidence grew. Her scores began to climb, her hands shot up more often in class, and her once slumped shoulders straightened a little more each day. She started looking forward to my class. When Teacher Appreciation Week rolled around, Sarah was one of the first students to come up to my desk, a shy smile on her face, clutching a bag containing my favorite cookies and a Starbucks gift card. It was a small gesture, but it meant the world to me. It was a tangible sign that my efforts were making a difference. Whenever the daily grind felt overwhelming, whenever a department meeting felt like a torture session of being ignored, or whenever administration failed to back me up on another behavioral issue, I clung to thoughts of Sarah and all my other students who were growing and thriving. Maybe I had failed to connect with my coworkers, but I had students who were flourishing, parents who supported me wholeheartedly. I tried to extend this ethos to every student. I made it a point to contact at least one student's home each week, not just for my super students, but for those quieter ones who often went unnoticed, to share a positive update. I even bought Easter gifts for a student whose mom had been in a bad car accident, knowing they wouldn't be able to celebrate that year. It was about creating a haven, a place of consistent care in a school that often felt like a battlefield. I had already made the decision to leave that toxic environment. Weeks earlier, after months of internal debate, I had quietly submitted my letter of resignation, securing a position at a different school for the next academic year. I wasn't leaving out of anger or frustration, though those feelings certainly played a part. I was leaving to preserve my passion, to find a place where my dedication was valued, not ridiculed. The resignation was my quiet escape, my silent rebellion. Then, during the last month of school, the email arrived. It was from Sarah's mom. The subject line was simply "regarding Sarah," but what unfolded within the message was anything but simple. She had attached a copy of a separate email, one she had sent to both the principal and the superintendent. My heart pounded as I read it. The email was utterly scathing, a meticulously detailed account of the lack of support Sarah had received from her previous teacher, complete with documented instances of neglect and indifference. And then, it turned to me. It praised my guidance, my avid communication, and the incredible strides Sarah had made under my care. It spoke of my genuine concern and my unwavering dedication. The email concluded with a powerful statement, one that made my breath catch in my throat. Any district would be glad to have a teacher like Mr. Reed. I stared at the screen, tears of a different kind stinging my eyes, tears of vindication, of a quiet, profound triumph. She had no idea I had already resigned. She had simply wanted to express her gratitude, and in doing so had delivered a poetic justice I never could have orchestrated myself. As the school year drew to a close, an unexpected moment of redemption occurred. One of the other on-level teachers, not the one who had openly mocked me, but one who had always been part of the silent ostracization, approached me. Her face looked genuinely contrite. She admitted that a close coworker had shared details about the severe lack of administrative support I had faced regarding behavioral issues and the unfair blame I had received. She apologized truly and sincerely. It wasn't the full apology I might have once craved, but it was a recognition, a crack in the wall of silence that had surrounded me for so long. I left that school on a surprisingly high note, my head held high. My new school is everything that place wasn't. It's better, brighter, a place where collaboration is encouraged and support is readily available. I've already received recognition for my teaching, and more importantly, I am a happier, stronger, and more confident educator. Surviving that worst year of teaching didn't break me, it forged me into something resilient. The best revenge, I discovered, wasn't about tearing someone else down. It was about building myself up, about being the best teacher I could possibly be despite the odds. And I am immensely proud of that. Looking back, the real twist was that my revenge wasn't something I sought out with malice. It simply happened, a natural consequence of choosing kindness and dedication over bitterness, delivered by an unexpected ally, just as I was walking out the door toward a brighter future.